She handed him divorce papers on Christmas Day, in front of her cheering family. But when he said, "You should open your gift," everything changed. Because he didn't come unprepared. He came with proof, power, and the perfect revenge. The fire crackled softly in the hearth. The scent of pine mingled with cinnamon, eggnog, and freshly baked gingerbread. Christmas Day had wrapped the house in a cozy warmth, a holiday movie setting almost too perfect to be real. And maybe that's what it was, pretend. An illusion I didn't dare touch for fear it would shatter in my hands. Stephanie sat across from me at the long mahogany dining table, a porcelain smile painted on her lips. Her green dress hugged her in all the ways she liked, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders in soft curls. She looked like the picture of joy, of generosity, of grace. But her eyes didn't smile. Neither did mine. Her brother Darren was already 2 glasses into the family's special spiced rum, cracking jokes loud enough to echo into the next neighborhood. Her mother, Catherine, sat with a posture so perfect it could have been chiseled from ice, swirling wine, and pretending she didn't hear Darren's inappropriate punchlines. Her father, Norman, a man of business and bourbon, chuckled absently and nodded at whatever was said, his mind still halfway in a corporate boardroom. Then Stephanie reached into her purse, pulled out a red envelope, and slid it across the table, toward me. A silence dropped over the room so heavy it made the lights flicker. I stared at the envelope. No name, no decoration, just blood-red cardstock and tension thick enough to chew. She smiled again, mechanically. Everyone watched me. The background carols played on. Sinatra, I think. "Have yourself a merry little Christmas." I opened the envelope. 1 page. 3 lines into reading, my breath caught. Divorce papers. No warning, no argument. No cool emotional distance building up over time. Just this, cold, clinical, precise. The air left the room. My world didn't spin. It slowed. I looked up, and the applause began. They clapped. Stephanie's mother raised her glass. Darren gave a mock bow. Laughter, not the joyous kind, but the smug, satisfied kind, filled the room like smoke from a fire no one bothered to put out. Stephanie leaned in, her perfume mingling with the suffocating scent of betrayal. She whispered like it was an inside joke, "Merry Christmas." I smiled, not with my lips, but with my eyes. The same way I do in court when a witness walks right into a trap. I leaned closer, calm as still water, and just as deep. "You should open your gift." She blinked, a crack in her composure. She hadn't expected a gift. But she was wrong. She walked into my life like a gust of spring, loud, colorful, unstoppable. We met in college. She was earning her psychology degree. I was deep in constitutional law, head buried in books, path mapped out like a GPS route. She was chaos in color. I was in control of and strategy. She laughed like she owned the world. I didn't know what it was like to feel alive until I heard that laugh. She introduced me to her world: family brunches, weekend road trips, hot cocoa on rooftops, dancing in kitchens. I gave her structure, a sense of direction. She gave me warmth, a feeling of home. We got married 2 years after graduation. I took a job at a small but growing law firm. She pursued a master's in behavioral counseling. I bought us a house in the suburbs, with a big kitchen and a lemon tree in the yard. We hosted Sunday dinners. I charmed her parents. I tolerated Darren. I even let her redecorate my office with flowers and art I didn't understand. To everyone, we were the perfect couple. Even to me. Until the whispers began. It started small. A text she quickly deleted. A night out that went later than usual. A new phone password. A growing list of girls' nights that didn't include anyone I knew. Her laugh grew louder. Her eyes, colder. Conversations stopped when I entered the room. And Darren's mug, always overstepping, started being too friendly. Always around, joking with her like they had their language. Whispering during family gatherings. Catching glances when they thought no one was looking. I'm a lawyer. I don't deal in feelings. I deal in facts. So I started watching. At first it was just banking patterns, small withdrawals, hotel stays. The designer purchases, something she never wore around me. A second credit card, hidden. Then I hired someone, an investigator. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't need opinions. I needed evidence. And he delivered. Photos, video logs, hotel keycards, GPS pings. She and Darren wrapped around each other like lovers in stolen time. It didn't crush me. It clarified me. I didn't confront her. What would be the point? Betrayal. This bold doesn't deserve theatrics. It deserves justice. So I began planning, quietly, strategically, ruthlessly. First, I documented everything: screen captures, receipts, transfers. I built a folder so strong even a Supreme Court judge would raise an eyebrow. Then I went after the assets. I moved money, set up a trust under a different name, transferred ownership of our house to my sister. In a legal maneuver I buried inside paperwork disguised as routine estate updates. She signed them all without reading. I even updated my will, removed her as a beneficiary, and made Darren a person of legal interest. Meanwhile, I smiled, hosted dinners, bought her flowers, listened to her fake laughter echo through our house like it meant something. And then, I waited now, back to the dining room, back to the frozen moment. Her red envelope. My silver box is under the tree. Everyone watching. Stephanie hesitates. She walks over, heels clicking against the floor like a metronome, marking her unraveling. She picks up the box. She shakes it, smiles, nervous, performative. She unties the ribbon. She opens the lid, and then, her entire face changes. Her lips part slightly. Eyes widen. Hand trembles. Because inside are the photos, the hotel receipts, the bank transfers, and below it, the USB. She knows what's on it. GPS logs, camera footage, email dumps, phone backups. Evidence. Solid. Courtroom grade evidence. Her mother gasps. Her father drops his glass. Darren tries to speak. I stand, slowly, adjust my tie. As ever, I don't say her name. I don't scream. I just say, I figured you wouldn't want me to open your gift in front of everyone. But I wanted you to open mine. And she breaks. The illusion shatters. Everything starts to fall. But not for me, because I'm already gone. And this is just the beginning. Stephanie still hadn't moved. Her hand hovered over the open gift box. Frozen in that instant where perception and reality collide. The photos, now slightly fanned out, stared back at her, tangible proof of the secret she never thought would surface. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Darren finally spoke, half standing, slurring slightly from the rum. Look, man, I didn't even look at him. You might want to sit down. And you might want to start calling your lawyer. The weight of my words settled in the room like snow on a coffin. Stephanie's father, Norman, stood up sharply, gripping the edge of the table. Is this some kind of joke? No, I replied. This is called due diligence. And an exit plan. Stephanie's face had drained of all color, and now she sat rigidly, staring into the bottom of the box like she might find an escape inside. She wouldn't. There wasn't one. I didn't shout. I didn't break. I just stood still. The calm of a storm I had built with precision over a year. And yet none of them saw it coming. It started on a Thursday. She'd come home late again. I could smell the alcohol, expensive perfume that wasn't hers, and a hint of tobacco she claimed to have quit in grad school. She was always with the girls, though she never could name more than two. Her coat smelled different. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. That's when the whisper arrived. A whisper of doubt, barely audible, but impossible to ignore once it starts. Like a draft slipping in through the cracks of a locked window. I checked her phone bill. Late night calls to a second number I didn't recognize, sometimes twice a night. I made a note. No confrontation. That Friday, she stayed over at Lily's place. I traced the number to a prepaid account. To clean, disposable. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, watching the fan rotate. As my heart slowed and my mind sharpened, I began playing a role. At home, I was the doting husband at Genix in the morning, her favorite cappuccino, Spotify playlists while we cooked. She laughed at my jokes. She let me rub her feet. She kissed me like she wanted to erase her guilt. But guilt, like bloodstains, doesn't wash out easily. It seeps. While she smiled, I planned. I opened a trust under a neutral name. She wouldn't recognize it if she saw it. I slowly moved funds, one transfer at a time, scheduled across weeks, like a whisper campaign against our joint account. I called my sister and arranged a transfer of property ownership. Powerhouse, the one she decorated with so much pride, would be legally moved under a shared family trust. Stephanie signed the documents without a blink. Tax season stuff, I said. She was watching Netflix. I started storing digital records in a cloud drive she didn't know existed. I cataloged every receipt she forgot in her coat pockets, every charge to our cards, every late-night Uber ride that ended blocks from Darren's condo. The truth doesn't shout, it whispers. And I was listening. He was always the smirker in the room, the arms around too many shoulders. The glass was always refilled. Stephanie used to say, "That's just Darren. He flirts with everyone. It's harmless, but harmless. Doesn't smell like your wife's shampoo. Doesn't leave a trail of client dinners that match her calendar. Doesn't book the same suite twice a month, with charges billed to a shell company. He once bragged about, I knew the firm he worked for, and I knew what kind of funding his department handled. So, I started digging. A couple of emails, a few calls, one anonymous tip. By the time I finished, I had enough to ruin him in 2 zip files and a single printed envelope. Stephanie thought she was risking our marriage. Darren never realized he was risking everything. The private investigators sent the last batch of photos. Stephanie's face, flushed in the hallway of the Ritz-Carlton. Darren was behind her, laughing, hand resting too low on her waist. A timestamp. Their smiles didn't look fake. That's what hurt the most. They looked ... familiar. Like home. That night, I went into the guest room, shut the door, and stared at our wedding photo on the bookshelf. For a moment, I wanted to feel broken, but I wasn't. Because by now, I had moved beyond pain. I had entered clarity. It wasn't about revenge, it was about reset. Stephanie's hand reached for the USB in the box. I could see the tremor in her wrist, the fear behind her eyes finally overtaking the arrogance. She didn't want to look at me anymore. I turned to her parents. Did you know your daughter's been using our joint savings to fund her affair? I let it hang in the air. 8 months. Hotels, flights, gifts. From my account, her father's face was darkening by the second. Stephanie, is this true? Her mother asked in a tight whisper. Stephanie couldn't answer. I pivoted to Darren, who was now standing behind his chair, trying to find some moral footing in a sinking room. I pulled a small folder from my coat. Your company wouldn't be too happy if this reached their compliance department. Darren, travel expenses charged to your business card. Embezzlement. Breach of conduct. You'll lose more than your job. He opened his mouth. I raised a hand. Don't. I already sent a copy to your board. Gasps. Darren sat down. Stephanie slumped on the couch, staring into nothing. I spent the final days tying knots. The lawyer had the full file. The court documents were drafted. Divorce to be filed first thing after the holiday. Stephanie's gifts were all already under the tree, only one with her name on it. The rest were for show. I had changed the deed to the house, cancelled her access to our joint accounts, locked her out of my firm's financials, and updated every password, every failsafe, every contingency. By the time she handed me that red envelope, my house was no longer hers. My future clean. What she thought was a dramatic mic drop. Was I letting her fall? I turned back to the room, now silent as snowfall. I'll be filing tomorrow. Adultery. Full evidence submitted. I've already frozen joint accounts. The house is in my sister's name. She signed the transfer months ago. Stephanie's eyes finally met mine. Her lips trembled. Why? Why didn't you say anything? Because you weren't worth the conversation, I said flatly. Only the conclusion. Darren muttered something. Stephanie's mother was crying. Her father sat down, rubbing his temples. I walked to the door and pulled on my coat. Behind me, Stephanie whispered, wait, please. But I kept walking. The winter air struck me like a baptism. I stood on the porch for a moment, watching snowflakes settle on the sleeve of my coat. My breath fogged in the cold. It was quiet, but not the kind of silence that hurts. The kind that heals. I slid into my car. I didn't turn on the heat. I didn't need it. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel cold. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel anything. I just sat there, breathing free. Inside the house, Stephanie collapsed onto the couch. The box sat untouched beside her, its contents splayed like crime scene evidence. Darren stood motionless, eyes fixed on the USB as if it were a detonator. Her parents, once pillars of high society composure, hadn't moved in minutes. No one spoke. No one dared. Outside, I sat behind the wheel of my parked car. The snow fell in lazy spirals. A soft wind whispered across the windshield. I stared out at the Christmas-lit street, houses glowing in cheerful ignorance. For a fleeting moment, I remembered something absurdly small. The way Stephanie used to sneak extra marshmallows into my cocoa. A memory, nothing more. It didn't. Her just flickered. Then it vanished, replaced by the present. The real gift. The one I had planned, wrapped, and delivered with surgical precision. I had played my part. Now it was time for them to face theirs. Stephanie had grown quieter. Not from guilt, no. Her kind of quiet was calculation. She sensed something was wrong. The cheerful, blind ignorance she'd worn like perfume was beginning to peel. One night, She brought me dinner in bed, lasagna, wine. Her old college playlist humming in the background. "You've been working too hard," she said softly. "I miss us." I studied her face. She didn't blink. "Do you?" I asked, sipping the wine. She nodded too quickly. "I do. We should go away for Christmas. Just us." Her eyes searched mine. Was she trying to reel me back in? Or was she trying to check how much I knew? I smiled. "That sounds nice." She smiled back. Victory glittered behind her lashes. I reached for her hand across the tray, squeezed it gently, and didn't blink. She didn't sleep that night. I know, because I listened from the guest room, heard her pacing in the hallway, opening drawers, rereading papers. She was looking for signs, password changes, missing documents. She had caught the scent of something she couldn't name. But I had already cleaned up. There were no open trails, no bookmarks, no receipts left to find. I had covered my tracks, not like a man hiding something, but like a man waiting for the perfect moment to reveal everything. Stephanie had built her second life in the shadows. She just didn't realize that I had been standing in the dark with her the whole time. Inside the house, Stephanie's mother had finally found her voice. How could you do this to your husband?" Her tone wasn't maternal. It was disgusting. Stephanie looked up, cheeks damp. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." Norman stood. "You think that matters? This is how we raised you." Catherine's glare snapped to Darren. "And you, my daughter's husband." Darren looked like a boy caught stealing from a candy shop. Except his theft was a marriage and a decade of trust. "It just happened," he started. 8 months isn't just anything," Norman thundered. Stephanie wiped her eyes, but the tears looked wrong, to shallow performance tears. "For sympathy, for leverage." Her voice dropped. "He's not innocent either." Catherine turned, shocked. "What?" She gestured to the box. "You think he just found all of this?" "He was planning, spying, digging, manipulating. He moved money without telling me. Tricked me into signing papers." Her voice rose. "He's not a victim. He's a snake." Silence. Then Norman laughed dry and hollow. "Stephanie, he didn't lie. You did. He didn't cheat. You did. He didn't burn this family down. You did." Stephanie's shoulders crumpled. For days before Christmas, I visited my parents. They had never liked Stephanie. Said she had a mouth full of charm and a soul full of mirrors. My mother was the only one who had warned me back then. "She shines too brightly," she said. "And people who shine that brightly usually burn things." I didn't argue. Not anymore. I told them about the divorce. My mother simply said, "I'm sorry it took this long." My father leaned forward. "Do you regret marrying her?" I thought. Long and hard. "No," I said. "If I hadn't, I wouldn't know how strong I am." And I meant it. I had included a separate USB in the folder I sent to Darren's company. It wasn't just photos of him and Stephanie. It was tax returns. Flight bookings, false reimbursements, emails where he bragged about creative expense handling. By now, I imagined, someone in compliance had already opened that email. Stephanie had ruined our marriage, but Darren, he had opened the door for prosecution. My final message to him, just before walking out of the house, had been simple. "You stole from your employer for your affair. That's embezzlement." And the moment he processed that word embezzlement was the moment I saw fear take root in his smug little soul. She would try to spin it. I knew it. She'd claim she was blindsided, manipulated, emotionally abandoned, that I was cold, withholding, and distant. That Darren was there for her. She'd cry in court. But I had a binder of evidence. Voice memos, password logs, screenshots of flirty messages between her and Darren. Even during family dinners, she'd tried to delete them. But I had backups. Stephanie built a life on deception. But now the truth had teeth. Later that night, long after I had left, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I answered anyway. Silence at first. Then her voice. I didn't know you were capable of something like this." I paused. "You never really knew me, Stephanie. I thought you were just ... quiet, predictable, safe." I leaned back in my chair, looked at the twinkling lights of my quiet apartment downtown, the one she never knew about. "I am quiet," I said. "Just not the kind of quiet you survive," she sniffled. "Do you hate me?" I didn't answer right away. "Hate implies passion," I said. "What I feel for you now doesn't even register on that scale." She whispered, "You loved me once." I nodded, even though she couldn't see. "I still do," I said. "But I love myself more now." I ended the call. The days that followed were strangely peaceful. My attorney filed for the divorce. My firm backed me. My sister changed the locks. Darren's job was suspended pending investigation. Stephanie's name trended locally. A quiet scandal in upper-tier circles. But I didn't gloat. I didn't party. I just worked. Ate. Breathed. Because the biggest twist in revenge isn't revenge. It's reclamation. And I had reclaimed myself. I sat by the fireplace of my downtown apartment. The lights dimmed. The logs crackling like low applause. The air smelled of cedar and faint whiskey. I hadn't touched a single decoration. The holiday never mattered to me, not like it did to her. Outside, the city was blanketed in quiet, peaceful white. Lovers strolled in coats and scarves. Car horns were subdued. Everything looked like a postcard. I leaned back in my chair and thought not about her. Not anymore, but about truth. About how it doesn't knock. It kicks the door in. We were in our 3rd year of marriage. She had gotten into grad school. I remember how proud she looked when the letter arrived, jumping in the kitchen, barefoot, flour on her hands. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said. I believed her. We celebrated that night with champagne and music. She danced like the world would never turn on her. I watched like it was the last time joy would live in our home. And maybe, in a way, it was. Because months later, she changed. Subtly at first. Fewer kisses. Less laughter. Then slowly, she stopped asking how my day was. The courthouse was a different kind of cold. I wore a navy blue tie perfectly knotted. My lawyer, Angela, was a brilliant woman with sharper instincts than most men I'd ever met. She knew the case backward and forward. Stephanie arrived in gray, no makeup, eyes red. Darren wasn't there. He'd been advised to stay away, especially now that formal charges were under review at his firm. Her lawyer whispered aggressively before they sat. They weren't ready for the scale of what we had. Angela handed over the feeler mountain of Betrayal in printed form. Stephanie saw it, page by page, like her life was being disassembled in public. She stopped looking at me after page 3. She waited for me in the hallway. After the hearing, the air smelled like stale coffee and furniture polish. She wore a black coat, too big for her shoulders. "I loved you," she said softly. I didn't reply. "I did," she insisted. Even when things got complicated. Darren was convenient," I finished. "He was your alibi for why you felt bored, not your soulmate." She flinched. "I didn't plan for any of this, but you executed it anyway." "I was lonely." "So was I said. "But I didn't trade you in for your sister's husband." She looked away. "You changed." "I grew up," I said. "You didn't." The irony wasn't lost on me. She thought she was handing me an ending that day. Red envelope, the smirk, the theater of betrayal staged around a Christmas tree. But really, she was signing her exit papers months ago. When she authorized documents, she didn't read. When she approved account changes, she thought they were tax-related. When she ignored the subtle shift in my gaze from husband to opponent, she never suspected that the man she married, the quiet, loyal, calm partner, was also capable of becoming her reckoning. But I was. The judge was swift. Divorce granted on grounds of adultery. Asset division, as per documentation. Spousal support. Denied home. Retained by my sister's trust. Firm equity. Fully protected. Stephanie looked like a statue, her hands limp in her lap. Angela leaned toward me and whispered, "You just surgically removed a 10-year tumor in 20 minutes. I gave a single nod. No celebration. Just closure. A knock came at my apartment door. Not loud. Hesitant. I opened it to find a courier envelope. No sender listed. Inside was a single page. Her handwriting. "You planned this. You watched me drown and never tried to save me. But I don't blame you anymore. I blame myself. Because you were never weak. You were silent. And I mistook silence for softness. But you were always made of steel. Merry Christmas." Stephanie. I folded the letter, slid it into a drawer, and didn't think about it again. Not with pain. Not with joy. Just a final page in a book I was done writing. I wake early. I take my coffee black now. I bought a dog stray. A mutt, with scars and stories. He doesn't trust people easily. I get that. I still walk past the house sometimes, not because I miss it, but because I like knowing I left it behind. Some nights, I look at the sky and wonder how a decade can vanish like smoke. But most nights, I just sleep, no guilt, no ache, no ghosts. People ask me sometimes why I don't date much. I smile and say, I'm learning how to be whole again. But what I never say out loud is this: You only need to be broken once to understand the price of peace. And you only need to be betrayed once to realize how long the quiet can echo. My name, Ethan Callahan, defense attorney. Ex-husband. Survivor. The man she thought was background noise. But I wasn't silent. I was the pause before the thunder.